Your soulmate is about to say goodbye forever. Please don't ignore this message. My beloved child, listen carefully. Don't skip this message, because something about this moment feels different. Someone you have been deeply connected to may be standing at an emotional crossroads, and they may be preparing to say goodbye, not necessarily because they stopped caring, but because they have convinced themselves that leaving is the only way to stop hurting. There is a conversation they have been rehearsing in their mind, words they have imagined saying to you, and one sentence keeps returning, maybe I need to let you go. But before fear takes over your heart, stay until the end, because this message is not here to tell you that everything is already lost. It is here to help you understand what may be happening beneath the silence, what your soulmate may be struggling to express, and why the next few choices could matter more than you realize. There are goodbyes that happen because love disappears, and there are goodbyes that happen because two people become exhausted from misunderstanding each other. There are goodbyes spoken from anger, goodbyes spoken from pride, and goodbyes spoken through tears when someone believes they are protecting themselves. Your soulmate may be approaching one of those moments. From the outside, they may look calm. They may appear distant, distracted, or completely finished with the situation. But inside, there could be a storm they have not allowed anyone to see. They may be asking themselves whether staying connected to you is giving them hope or keeping them trapped in uncertainty. And that question has become painful. They may have tried to move forward. They may have told themselves they were finally done thinking about you. They may have removed your conversation from their screen, avoided places where they might see you, stayed busy, talked to other people, or convinced themselves that enough time would make the feelings disappear. But every attempt to silence their emotions may have created another reminder of you. Sometimes the heart becomes loudest when we deliberately try not to listen to it. Your soulmate may be experiencing exactly that. There is a memory they cannot escape. Maybe it is the way you looked at them during a quiet moment. Maybe it is something you said that they did not understand at the time. Maybe it is a promise that was never completed. Maybe it is the last conversation between you that ended differently than either of you wanted. Whatever the memory is, it keeps returning because something inside them still feels unfinished. And unfinished does not always mean reunion. Sometimes unfinished means truth. Sometimes it means an apology that was never given. Sometimes it means forgiveness that was never requested. Sometimes it means two people need one honest conversation before they can finally understand what happened. Your soulmate may be preparing to say goodbye because they are tired of waiting for that conversation. They may believe you have already moved on. They may believe you no longer care. They may believe that reaching out would only reopen wounds. They may even believe they are doing you a favor by disappearing. But there is something they may not understand. Silence does not always protect people. Sometimes silence creates the exact pain it was supposed to prevent. Your soulmate may have been protecting themselves from rejection, but in doing so, they created distance. They may have been afraid of appearing vulnerable, so they acted cold. They may have been afraid of losing control, so they withdrew. They may have been afraid you would say no, so they never asked. And now they are standing at the edge of a decision. Do they finally speak? Or do they walk away? That is why this message matters. Because if you have been sensing an emotional shift, if their behavior has suddenly become unusual, if they seem quieter than before, or if something about their energy feels like a chapter is closing, do not immediately assume it means they stopped caring. Sometimes people become distant right before they make a major emotional decision. Your soulmate may be preparing themselves to leave because they think you no longer want them. Imagine carrying that belief. Imagine loving someone but convincing yourself they would be better without you. Imagine wanting to reach out but believing your presence would only create more confusion. Imagine holding your phone, looking at someone's name, and thinking, should say goodbye. That is not always the thought of someone who feels nothing. Sometimes it is the thought of someone who feels too much and does not know what to do with it. Your soulmate may have reached a point where they are exhausted from uncertainty. They want an answer. They want clarity. They want to know whether there is still something worth fighting for. But perhaps they are afraid to ask because the answer might break their heart. So instead, they are preparing themselves for goodbye. They may have started mentally detaching. They may be telling themselves, this is the last time I will think about them. This is the last message I will write. This is the last time I will check. This is the last time I will hope. But then your memory returns. And the cycle begins again. This is why their goodbye may not be as final as it appears. But listen carefully, do not interpret this as a promise that someone will return. Do not put your life on hold waiting for a particular person. A message like this should never become a reason to chase someone or ignore your own boundaries. What matters is understanding the emotional possibility and staying grounded in reality. If your soulmate wants to say goodbye, they have the right to make that choice. And you have the right to decide what you will accept. Love does not mean holding someone hostage. Love does not mean begging someone to stay. Love does not mean abandoning your dignity because you are afraid of losing someone. Sometimes the strongest response to a goodbye is calm honesty. If there is something you genuinely need to say it without manipulation. If there is something you need to apologize for, take responsibility. If there is something you need to forgive, begin that process. But do not destroy yourself trying to control another person's decision. Your soulmate may be learning that lesson too. They may be realizing that love cannot be forced. They may be realizing that silence cannot create security. They may be realizing that if they want something different, they must communicate differently. And that realization may be frightening. Because your soulmate may have spent years avoiding difficult conversations. Maybe they learned to walk away instead of explaining. Maybe they learned to hide emotion instead of expressing it. Maybe they were taught that vulnerability was weakness. Maybe they experienced rejection when they were honest in the past. So when they met you and felt something deeper, their first instinct was not necessarily to embrace it. Their first instinct may have been to protect themselves. That protection became distance. Distance became confusion. Confusion became pain. And now pain is pushing them toward goodbye. Do you see the cycle? Fear created silence. Silence created misunderstanding. Misunderstanding created distance. Distance created regret. And regret is now creating the desire to speak. Your soulmate may finally be tired of repeating that cycle. They may be asking themselves, What if I just tell the truth? What if they told you they miss you? What if they admitted they were afraid? What if they acknowledged that their actions hurt you? What if they finally said, I didn't leave because I stopped caring. I left because I didn't know how to handle what I felt. That sentence could change everything. Not because it guarantees a relationship, but because honesty creates clarity. And clarity is what both of you may have needed all along. There is a possibility your soulmate may reach out unexpectedly. It could be a short message. A simple, "Can we talk?" A late-night call. A voice message. A letter. Or even a conversation that begins casually and slowly becomes emotional. Do not focus on the drama of the moment. Listen for sincerity. Listen for accountability. Listen for whether they understand what happened. Listen for whether they are willing to change the patterns that caused the distance. Because someone can miss you and still not be ready for a healthy relationship. Someone can love you and still need to grow. Someone can regret losing you and still need to learn how to communicate. That is why this message is not simply about getting someone back. It is about recognizing the difference between emotional intensity and emotional maturity. Your soulmate may be experiencing intense emotions right now. But what matters is what they do with those emotions. Do they use them to manipulate? Or do they use them to become honest? Do they blame you? Or do they take responsibility? Do they disappear again? Or do they communicate consistently? Those answers will tell you more than any prediction ever could. Perhaps the goodbye your soulmate is preparing is actually a goodbye to an old version of themselves. The version that ran away. The version that hid. The version that waited for you to read their mind. The version that believed love could survive without communication. Maybe they are finally ready to leave that version behind. And that could be the most important goodbye of all. Because sometimes two people cannot build a new relationship until they say goodbye to the habits that destroyed the old one. Your soulmate may be standing at that exact threshold. They are looking backward at everything that happened. They are looking forward at everything that could happen. And they are afraid of choosing wrong. They may be thinking about the future they could have with you. They may also be thinking about the pain that could happen if they try again. That is why they hesitate. They are not necessarily confused about their feelings. They may be confused about whether they are strong enough to handle them. And that distinction matters. Maybe they know they love you. Maybe they know they miss you. Maybe they know they still care. But knowing is not the same as acting. Your soulmate may need courage more than emotion. They may need honesty more than another sign. They may need to accept that there are no guarantees. Because love always involves uncertainty. You can never know exactly how another person will respond. You can only choose to be honest and respectful. And perhaps your soulmate is finally approaching that choice. They may have reached the point where keeping everything inside feels worse than risking rejection. That is when people finally speak. That is when the goodbye becomes a confession. I thought I could forget you. I couldn't. I thought I could move on. I couldn't. I thought leaving would make everything easier. It didn't. I thought you would stop mattering. You didn't. These are the kinds of truths people sometimes discover only after distance gives them perspective. Your soulmate may be discovering them now. But you must also protect your heart. Do not romanticize suffering. Do not believe someone must hurt endlessly to prove that their love is real. Healthy love should not require constant heartbreak. If your soulmate comes back, they need to come back differently. Not simply emotional. Different. More honest. More consistent. More willing to communicate. More willing to respect your boundaries. More willing to hear your side. And if they cannot do that, then the goodbye may actually be necessary. Sometimes a goodbye is painful but healthy. Sometimes walking away is the only way two people stop hurting each other. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is allow them to choose their path. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is stop waiting for someone who refuses to choose. That does not make the connection meaningless. It makes you honest. You can honor what you felt without sacrificing your future. You can appreciate the memories without living inside them. You can love someone and still move forward. That is strength. So if your soulmate is truly about to say goodbye, let their actions reveal why. If they say they need space, respect it. If they ask for one final conversation, listen if you feel safe and ready. If they apologize, decide what forgiveness means for you. If they say they want another chance, ask what will actually be different. Do not settle for promises without a plan. Do not accept temporary emotion as permanent change. And never allow fear to convince you that you must accept less simply because you are afraid there will be no one else. Your future is not limited to one person. Your worth is not determined by whether one person stays. Your life does not end when someone walks away. You remain. Your dreams remain. Your purpose remains. Your ability to love remains. And perhaps your soulmate needs to understand that too. Maybe the reason they are preparing to say goodbye is because they finally realize they cannot keep you trapped in uncertainty. Maybe they know they have not given you what you deserve. Maybe they are ashamed. Maybe they believe leaving is an act of love. But there may be another option. Honesty. They could say what they truly feel. They could ask what you truly want. They could stop guessing. They could stop assuming. They could stop writing endings before the conversation has even happened. And perhaps that is the real message your soulmate needs to hear. Don't say goodbye based on an assumption. If you believe you are unwanted, ask. If you believe they have moved on, ask. If you believe the door is closed, ask. Because assumptions can destroy relationships that honesty could have saved. Maybe your soulmate has been living inside an assumption about you. They may think you have forgotten them. They may think you are happier without them. They may think you would never forgive them. They may think they missed their chance. And perhaps none of those things are completely true. But they will never know unless they communicate. You cannot read their mind. They cannot read yours. That is why the next conversation matters. Not because it guarantees a reunion. Because it can finally replace guessing with truth. And perhaps the moment your soulmate says goodbye, they may accidentally reveal what they really feel. They may start with, "I think this is goodbye." But their voice may tell another story. Their eyes may fill with tears. Their words may become slower. They may mention memories. They may thank you. They may apologize. They may tell you that you changed them. And then there may be a long silence. That silence could contain everything they were too afraid to say. Maybe they are waiting for you to say something. Maybe they are waiting for permission to be honest. Maybe they are waiting for themselves to become brave. But whatever happens, remember this. You do not have to perform a perfect response. You do not have to save the moment. You do not have to say exactly the right words. You simply have to be truthful. If you care, say you care. If you are hurt, say you are hurt. If you need time, say you need time. If you are ready to move forward, say so. Honesty is enough. And if the relationship is meant to continue in a healthy way, honesty will create the foundation. If it is not, honesty will create closure. Either way, you win clarity. So, beloved child, do not panic because someone may be preparing to say goodbye. Sometimes a goodbye is the ending of a chapter. Sometimes it is the beginning of a new one. Sometimes it is a temporary separation. Sometimes it is permanent. You cannot know which one it will be until reality unfolds. But you can control how you meet the moment. Meet it with dignity. Meet it with calm. Meet it with compassion. Meet it with self-respect. And if your soulmate truly cares, they will recognize the difference between someone who begs them to stay and someone who calmly tells them the truth. The latter carries strength. And strength is what this connection may need. Your soulmate may have spent too much time running from difficult emotions. Now they may finally be forced to face them. They may realize that saying goodbye does not automatically remove love. It only creates distance. And distance does not heal everything. Sometimes distance gives clarity. Sometimes it simply makes you miss what you refuse to appreciate. Your soulmate may be learning which one this is. They may be realizing that they do not want to lose you simply because they were afraid to communicate. They may be realizing that pride is a terrible price to pay for love. And they may be realizing that the person they thought would always be there is actually capable of walking away. That realization can change someone. But again, let change be proven. Do not carry the relationship alone. If they want to rebuild, they must participate. If they want trust, they must earn it. If they want closeness, they must create safety. If they want another chance, they must understand that another chance is not another opportunity to repeat the same behavior. It is an opportunity to do things differently. Perhaps that is the final test. Not whether they can say they love you. Whether they can love you better. And maybe you are entering a season where you no longer accept words without actions. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer confuse inconsistency with mystery. You know what you deserve. And that is exactly why this moment feels so intense. Because you have changed too. Your soulmate may not be the only person standing at a crossroads. You are standing there as well. You are choosing between waiting and living. Between fear and peace. Between old patterns and new standards. Between hoping someone changes and allowing them to prove whether they have. Choose wisely. Choose yourself first. And if they come forward with genuine change, you can decide whether there is room for them in your future. But do not abandon yourself to keep a place open. The right person will understand that your life must continue. Your soulmate may be about to say goodbye. But perhaps the deeper goodbye is happening inside both of you. Goodbye to fear. Goodbye to pride. Goodbye to silent expectations. Goodbye to emotional games. Goodbye to assuming instead of asking. Goodbye to loving from a distance when honesty could bring understanding. And if the two of you ever begin again, let it be from that place. Not from desperation. Not from loneliness. Not because one person is afraid to be alone. But because both people have become honest enough to choose each other freely. That is the kind of love worth building. So, beloved child, if this message reached you at a moment when your heart feels heavy, breathe. You do not need to know the ending tonight. You do not need to predict tomorrow. You do not need to chase someone who may be walking away. Let the truth reveal itself. If they reach out, listen. If they apologize, consider. If they ask for another chance, watch what they do. If they say goodbye, allow yourself to grieve without losing yourself. And if they return later, remember why they left and ask what has changed. Your heart is precious. Protect it without closing it. Love deeply without abandoning your boundaries. Hope without becoming dependent on an outcome. And remember that sometimes the most powerful response to someone saying, "I'm leaving," is not, "Please don't." Sometimes it is, "I care about you. I wanted this to work. But I also want you to be honest about what you truly need. I will not force you to stay. And I will not abandon myself just to keep you." Those words carry peace. Those words carry maturity. Those words allow love to exist without control. And if your soulmate truly belongs in your future, that freedom may be exactly what gives them the courage to stop running. Because when someone realizes you will not chase them, they finally have to decide whether they are willing to walk toward you. No more games. No more assumptions. No more hiding. Just choice. And perhaps that is where the next chapter begins. Not with a dramatic promise. Not with a desperate plea. But with two people finally telling the truth. Your soulmate may be preparing to say goodbye forever. But before you let fear decide what that means, remember that you are not powerless. You can communicate. You can listen. You can protect your heart. You can choose peace. And you can continue living your life regardless of what another person chooses. If they stay, let them stay with intention. If they leave, let them leave without taking your self-worth with them. Because your worth was never dependent on their presence. And perhaps one day, when you look back at this moment, you will realize that the goodbye you feared was actually the moment everything became honest. Maybe it led to a healthier beginning. Maybe it gave you the closure you desperately needed. Maybe it taught you how to love without losing yourself. Whatever the outcome, you will be stronger for having faced the truth. So don't ignore this message. Not because it predicts a guaranteed event, but because it reminds you of something your heart may have forgotten. You deserve clarity. You deserve honesty. You deserve consistency. You deserve peace. And you deserve a love that chooses you without requiring you to beg. If your soulmate is standing at the door, let them speak. If they have something to say, let them say it. If they need to apologize, let them apologize. If they need to explain, let them explain. And then decide from a place of wisdom rather than fear. Because the final chapter has not been written by silence. It will be written by choices. And perhaps the most beautiful ending is this. Your soulmate finally stops running. You finally stop chasing. The past finally loses its power. The fear finally becomes honest conversation. And two people who once thought they had to say goodbye finally discover that what they really needed was the courage to tell the truth. But even if the story ends differently, remember this final truth. A goodbye cannot erase what you learned, what you survived, or who you became. You are still here. You are still growing. You are still worthy. You are still capable of being loved deeply and honestly. So if someone walks away, let them walk with dignity. If someone returns, let them return with proof. And if someone chooses you, let them choose you completely. Never settle for half a heart because you are afraid of an empty room. Your future deserves more than that. Your peace deserves more than that. Your heart deserves more than that. And perhaps, when the final conversation finally happens, your soulmate will look at you and realize something they should have understood much earlier. They were not afraid of losing you because you were ordinary. They were afraid because you mattered. But now, they have a choice. They can continue running from what they feel. Or they can finally stand still, tell the truth, and face it. And whatever they choose, you will be okay. Because this time, you are not waiting for someone else to decide your worth. You already know it.